Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me today. So, there's this new movie on Netflix. It's starring Julia Roberts and Ethan Hawke. It's called Leave the World Behind. It is telling you what the elites are planning to do. I'm going to give you an overview of the movie, but I'm only going to tell you the parts that I feel are important that really um, are honing in on what they're trying to do. So, there may be some spoilers in here, so be mindful of that if you haven't watched the movie yet. In the beginning of the movie, Julia Roberts rents a house in the country for the weekend to get away from their city life. So she has a husband and two children, a son and a daughter. It's a good thing she did rent that house in the country because that same day there was a blackout. There was no internet, the GPS didn't work, and neither did cell phones. And this caused a lot of Tesla cars to stop working, along with cargo ships and planes. Planes were crashing in the movie. In the movie, there was this huge cargo ship. It was called White Lion. It ran onto the beach because it had a system malfunction due to the blackout. But, I find it ironic that the ship in the movie was named White Lion. And if you go back in history, the White Lion was a privateer that operated under the Dutch. And he's responsible for helping to bring the first Africans to a Virginia colony in 1619 as slaves. So out of all the names they could have named that ship. Anyway, Julia and Ethan's family, they're staying in this rented luxury home, this beautiful home in the country for the weekend. But then the owners of the home come back, and it was a black man and his daughter. And they came back to their home due to the blackout, and they asked to stay in their home in the guest suite in the basement until things returned back to normal. Now the next day when they awoke and they realized that things had not gotten back to normal, they realized that they were really not prepared for a blackout to last this long. So in the movie, Julia and Ethan's son got sick with a fever, and he was a teenager. He got sick with a fever and his teeth began to fall out. But you really never knew what caused his teeth to fall out because at one point he was in the forest and he was bitten by a bug, which he pulled off of his leg. So you don't know if it was the bug that caused his teeth to fall out, or if it caused his fever and his vomiting, or if it was what one of the neighbors said when he mentioned that the same thing happened in Cuba a while back, and there was a loud sound in Cuba, and radiation was emitted through the sound, and it was called microwave weapons, which caused people to lose their teeth then too. So you really never knew why he lost his teeth. Which cause was it? Was it the bug or was it this radiation that was emitted? So anyway, Ethan Hawke and Mahershala Ali was the black man who owned the house. He took Ethan Hawke, who was the father of the boy, he took him to his neighbor's house to see if he could get some type of antibiotics. Now, the neighbor was Kevin Bacon, and he was a prepper. And Kevin Bacon tells them that he does have medicine that could heal the boy, but he's not going to give the medicine to them. And the reason why is because he needed it for his own family. He was prepared. He had waters that he had purchased from the store, and he had food and what he needed. He even had a gun to keep Mahershala and Ethan Hawke away. But what I find odd is that the neighbor in conversation, he assumed that the boy's teeth falling out was a form of war. He thought it was microwave weapons. He thought it was when it would happen in Cuba, it was a form of war. He said that the Russians recalled their staff from Washington because apparently they knew what was going to happen. They knew that there was going to be some type of war on the American people. When Ethan and Mahershala went to Kevin Bacon to get the medicine, um, there was an argument that ensued, and Kevin Bacon pointed his rifle at them and told him to leave. But Ethan begged Kevin Bacon and offered to give him $1,000, and the neighbor finally agreed to sell them the medication for the money. Even though the money was practically worthless, he had a heart and he didn't want to see that the boy died, so he gave them the antibiotics for the boy. But Kevin Bacon tells them that the Koreans or Chinese are behind the blackout. And Ethan tells Kevin, that there were many red pamphlets that fell from a drone, and the pamphlets had "Death to America" written on them and were possibly dropped by Iranians. But Kevin Bacon disputed the claim. And he said that he doesn't believe it's by Iranians. He just believes that it was the Koreans or the Chinese, and possibly the Russians may have had something to do with it or knew about it. So when Mahershala and Ethan got back into the car, Mahershala recalled a conversation that he had actually had with one of his clients, because the client that Mahershala had, he studied the cost benefit analysis of military campaigns. And he said that his client was bothered by this program that had a three-stage maneuver that could topple a country's government from within. And Mahershala said the first stage, if you want to destroy a government, the first stage is isolation. So you would isolate the people by disabling their communication and transportation. You make the people or the target as deaf, dumb, and paralyzed as possible, and this will set them up for that second stage, which was synchronized chaos. You terrorize them with these covert attacks and misinformation, overwhelming their defense capabilities and leaving their weapons system vulnerable to extremists and their own military. So, without a clear enemy or motive, people would start to turn on each other, and that would allow the third stage to happen on its own. Well, let's scale back for a moment because miscommunication is a part of stage two. And the neighbors spoke about the blackout possibly being caused by Russians, then the Koreans or Chinese, and then possibly Iranians. So, no one really knew who caused the blackout due to the miscommunication. Now, on to the third stage, which is civil war and collapse. If the nation that is targeted is already dysfunctional, it would be easier to destroy them and have them destroy themselves. So, close to the end of the movie, there is a clip of Julia Roberts and Mahershala's daughter standing in the woods and watching the city catch on fire in the distance. It appeared to me that there was an explosion in the city because I saw a plane flying away, and it looked like there was some type of bombing that was going on. So for those of you who have not seen it, I won't spoil it for you and completely tell you the complete ending. You can watch that for yourself. But in the movie, it was apparent that the city was a very dangerous place to be. I personally think that the movie was the elite's way of telling us what may happen in the near future. I moved out of the city last year. I moved out of Atlanta in 2023, and I would advise you to move out of the city. The city is probably one of the most dangerous places to be when there is a prolonged blackout. According to SWECO, SWECO, this is what would happen during a prolonged blackout. They said that most urban cities rely heavily on electricity in daily life. The pumps bringing water to apartments and houses are dependent on electricity. This means that the water would not flow in high-rise buildings if there was a power outage. On lower floors, water availability will worsen as water towers run out of water. The heating systems are also dependent on electricity, and so are refrigerators and freezers. So hopefully something like this would not happen in the wintertime because it would be impossible to keep warm, right? Unless you had some type of solar equipment. Now, in case of power outage, lighting, ventilation systems, and other appliances that are used on a daily basis, it would all stop working. There are important functions in our society that cannot function if we don't have electricity. And one example is a grocery store. So, a grocery store of any size is going to face issues with electricity, with power related to heating and cooling the food. And payment activities, which are increasingly electronic. In the case of extended power cuts, problems will spread to store management and ordering and to supply chains. Hospitals also dependent on electricity. In the absence of power, surgeries are at risk, respirators shut down, hygiene is a threat. And then when it comes to waste management, it's also affected if dependent on pressure piping, which requires electricity to function. Production facilities such as power stations producing electricity and heat, wastewater treatment plants, industrial plants facing multiple challenges during power outages, Production losses can result in huge financial costs and also pose a threat to safety. For example, a production plant handles chemicals that require high temperatures and pressures is an imminent threat to the environment and personal safety when power is lost as the equipment fails. Infrastructure would also be affected by power outages. Traffic control systems, fuel distribution networks would stop working. Water would flood the streets due to inefficient and completely missing pumping. Plowing and cleaning of the roads would also be out of order, which would result in large scale problems during the wintertime. Stores would be looted and out of food. People would starve to death within a week. Others may not have access to their medicine, to oxygen, their dialysis machines, and they may pass away within a week. So I advise you to work on your health. If you have health issues, work on getting your health together so that you won't have to rely on medication. People will begin to loot other people's homes if they run out of food and water. Um, so they're basically going to steal from their neighbors what they need in order to survive. People will be in constant disarray. And again, if you can help it, you may want to get out of the city because that's probably going to be the most dangerous place to be. And in the movie, they said that several times. The city is the most dangerous place to be. Well, that wraps up my video for today. So please like, share, and subscribe for more content. And thank you for watching.